just
I'm
wander.
recording now. I think I'm recording now. Okay. Ralph and Dorothy Bressler. So can you start out by telling me, well, Dorothy, you were a student at DeLotte, and but tell me how many years you were at DeLotte as a student and how many years you worked there. What years did you arrive? And
I went to DeLotte School in 1937
wow.
for first grade. I remember we were living in Turan, which is now Da Nang, and my dad took me on a train. I don't remember the train ride, I just remember a picture of my dad and me looking out the window and waving goodbye to my mother and my brother. So we lived in the main building, which was the only building there was except for the ones that are in back of the main building. And
The main building is the one that's in the center in all the old pictures.
Right.
yeah, I had 4 roommates. Esther Fitzstevens was one of my roommates. Ann Stebbins Moore was one of my roommates. Evelyn Peterson, I don't know her married name, and there was one other, so there were 5 of us girls in that room. Next door to us was the bigger girls, and that's where Ruth Stebbins Thompson was. I remember her teaching us how to knit. And I remember my mother having such a fit because we were knitting on Sunday to keep us quiet. That was not something that my mother grew up doing and didn't believe that anybody should do any work
Right.
on Sunday.
That's great.
My teacher was Marion Bethke. No, I'm wrong.
No.
Strike that.
Okay.
It was Mrs. Hammond. She was a missionary wife from Thailand. I suppose they needed a teacher, so that was her job. And I remember we met out in a little room in the back, not the main building, but the ones in the back of the main building where Lois Chandler had her clinic.
Later.
Yeah, clinic later and stuff, washrooms and things like that. I remember we were supposed to raise our hand if we needed to go to the bathroom, only I didn't remember that, so I remember wetting my pants in first grade. That was a very traumatic thing.
Yes.
So how many years were you there?
We were there for 2 years, and then my family came home on furlough in 1939.
Okay.
My second grade teacher was Marion Bethke, who later married Ralph's father after his mother died.
Oh, really?
So she became my stepmother-in-law.
Wow. So where did you two meet?
We met in Seattle. I was going to Seattle Pacific and then to Seattle, and then to Simpson Bible College. And she was at Simpson. That's where we met.
Right. Okay.
Well, we went to the same Alliance Church, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did Dorothy tell you about DeLotte? Is that how you found out about it? Or, well, I guess that DeLotte had a lot of Alliance ties, didn't it?
No, well, we didn't go to DeLotte because Dorothy told me anyhow.
That's not why.
After I got my teaching degree and was teaching in a Christian school, we applied to go out under the Alliance. And we knew God was calling us to work in education. So we applied. First time we applied, we were turned down. A couple years later, we applied again and told them that, and the answer from the Alliance at that time was, "We're glad to hear from you again. We need you. So where do you want to go?" We said, wherever you want to send us, as long as it's a school, because we knew we were called to education.
Mm.
And with MKs. Lo and behold, they sent us to Dalat.
And what year
which
was
blessed
that?
us. We went out in 1961.
Okay.
And we were with Dalat School for
Until 75.
Right.
Minus furloughs.
Right. Wow. Okay. So what was it that made your time at Dalat so special? What was it that you obviously have fond memories, and what was so special about it?
Well, partly for me, it was going back to Vietnam. And since I spoke Kid Vietnamese, I could get along. I studied a little more, learned a little more Vietnamese. But
having grown up in the Philippines, or more or less somewhat, Asia was in both of our blood. So being sent there rather than South America or some other place was neat. What made it special? The students and their parents. I think that has been what has been special about Dalat and other mission schools. But just knowing you're building into lives, and then hearing about them, learning about them, keeping in touch after you leave, after they leave.
Yeah. You, when you worked at Dalat, what would you say the mission of the school was? What was the purpose of the school when you were there?
When we went, and probably stayed that way for at least 10 of the years we were there, was to provide a place for missionary kids that was safe and that was quality education and was Christian.
and so their parents could do mission work, without worrying about the kids.
Right.
The reason I said for the first 10 or so years that we were there, until it went to Malaysia, and even then until later when it was in Penang for a while, we always had a few other kids, either parents that were living in the same city or whatever, but there was a very small number. So that I'm sure that for the mission and for the school, the vision and mission was to minister to parents, missionaries, through taking care of their children.
Did you feel like you were able to fulfill that mission?
A lot of the time, and sometimes you realized you couldn't, and there was no way at a boarding school that you take the place of the parents.
Right.
You act for them, and you act in friendship and all that, but you're not a parent, and you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But the contacts, the friendships we've built, both with parents and with MKs, are long-lasting.
Yeah.
When I see them either go back to the mission field and know that the Lord uses at least a little bit in helping them, or that they have their own Christian family here in the States, then I'm pleased. When I see those who choose not to follow the Lord, I hurt and keep praying for them.
Yeah.
Some of those kids feel like their parents worked for God and not for them. like they were neglected.
but not a high number of them.
Not a high number,
But there's been
but
some.
there are those feelings that they got sent away to boarding school.
Yeah.
It's understandable. But I feel for those adults.
Then, of course, there's lots of good memories of activities and
Food.
and trips and all the rest.
Yeah. Well, I know that you two were very popular teachers. I hear a lot of great comments about you. And what was your philosophy as DeLotte staff members? I mean, what made you special, I guess? I'm not asking you to brag or anything, but just I'd like to know what was it that you did that was impacted the kids so much? Because you made a big impact on
You'd be
kids.
better off asking the kids how.
Yeah.
I think the bottom line is you have to do your best and you have to love.
Well, you have to be a friend, partly.
You have to be a listening person. Someone that they can trust. I think one of the impacts of DeLotte has been that staff members have stayed for a period of time. Because very often with international schools, even mission schools, kids are there longer than the staff members.
Yeah.
And it hurts so much to say goodbyes as missionary kids, especially as kids of any age. But you hurt so much to say goodbyes that it takes a couple years to young people to see that you are going to stay there and that you're going to be willing to be part of them.
Right.
Then they start opening up. And I think that's not atypical.
The MK group that's on Facebook, I read that. It's not just Alliance kids, it's all sorts of MKs. And a lot of them feel like they don't want to make friends with people because they'll just leave. Because it's happened to them so often.
Yeah.
So I think DeLotte has been special because there have been long-term staff.
What do you hope that DeLotte will be for the future? You know, DeLotte just secured our location till 2043, so we were able to for the next 25 years, and we've started building. And but what would you like? What's special about DeLotte that you would like to see continue?
That it continue, and I use that word continue because I see it happening, that it continue to be a lighthouse for the Lord and a place from which love radiates. But that it also continues to be quality in its relationships and in its education. And to do that, you have to keep on top of it. You have to keep changing and adapting to the changes around you. God calls us to be in the culture, but not necessarily to be part of the culture.
How about you, Dorothy? Would you like to see continue at DeLotte?
I think it's doing well. I think it needs to go on like it is. I'm sure that you have problems. Every place does.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully Malaysia will continue to be like it is,
Mm.
not like some of these others
Mm.
countries.
Mm. Well, can you tell me about how JSB got started? What was the junior senior experience? Like, what was the first year it happened, and can you tell me about the first JSB?
We can tell you what we think we remember.
Okay.
It's been
Because
a long time ago.
when we went out in '61, between Dorothy and I, the two seniors had 8 of their subjects taught by us.
Wow.
Well,
And they only had 10 or 11 subjects
it was
that they were
because they were
taking.
having trouble getting visas, and
Yeah, and it was just our going out with the others who went out around that time as staff members was because the mission was expanding the school for the countries around. But so at that point in time, we didn't have any JSB. I think it started the first time we had a junior senior banquet was the second year we were there, which would have been '62, '63, if I'm remembering right. And it would have been with just a few seniors.